All right, this is an introduction to solving quadratic equations. Um, One of the methods is factoring, and that's kind of what you see in the title of this, and we'll get more into factoring as we do a later video with this lesson. But this is more of an introduction to how we would find solutions to a quadratic equation. One of the ways that we display the solutions is through a graph. Another way is to just find the different solutions or zeros or roots of the equation using a couple of other methods that we'll talk about a little bit later. If you'll just turn your attention to this graph that I have identified 4 key points and I've labeled them for you here. So if you want to pause your video and then just make note of the 4 different points that I made that are key points. These are where the graph does either change or have an important location as far as the graphing process is concerned. Notice that the vertex is here. The vertex is that really critical point in a parabola where the graph changes from increasing to decreasing or decreasing to increasing, and it's either your maximum or your minimum point. In this case, it's the maximum point. Then we've got the 2 places that the parabola crosses the x-axis. Those are called x-intercepts, and their coordinates are here. Notice that the y value for both is 0. And then we have the y-intercept, which is where the graph crosses the y-axis. And this is, notice the coordinates for that are 0 for the x value. So those 4 points can really help us graph any parabola. So just, again, with some definitions and some ways to find these intercepts in case you don't have them. So if you need to pause your video and get these written down, that's fine. But again, there it is spelled out what a y-intercept is and how we could find the y-intercept. We could just substitute x with 0. When we want to find the x-intercept, we could substitute the y with 0. There are some names that we call these x-intercepts. They're either called solutions or zeros or roots, and this is where the y value is indeed 0. And so when we set a quadratic equation equal to 0, which is our first step in solving a quadratic equation, basically we're looking for the x-intercepts. Okay, and here, right here at the end of this introduction, I named the 3 different things you can do if you don't have an equation where you know the transformations of the quadratic and you can use the parent function. This is what if it's in standard form. So at that point, we wouldn't know what the transformations are. We wouldn't know what the vertex is. So we couldn't just adjust the parent function. So what we would do is we would either factor it and find the solutions and graph the vertex and the solutions, or we could use the quadratic formula and find the solutions and then use the vertex to graph those, or we could do what's called completing the square and find the solutions that way, use the vertex and graph it. So those 3 methods are what we would do when the equation is indeed in standard form and not in that nice form where we can predict the transformations and use the parent function.